After 24 hours of running, testing is officially over. Day 1 to 3, we got to see our 10 teams perform with their cars, do their testing programs, and see those liveries live on TV. We finally go now into a race weekend properly into 2024. I want to go over the worst and the best teams from testing before we get into the race weekend. Now, this is talking just for testing, so we're going off of tire wear, how the car looks like in balance, but the actual runnings themselves, those quality times that they kind of set in, and what the timing board actually says from day 1 to 3 isn't really accurate. So I'm not saying this is how the order is going to end up in the season, but going into the first race, we can kind of depict how it's going to look like from 10 to 1. Before getting started into it, thank you all so much for the support on the channel. I mean, I'm beyond grateful. Honestly, I'm beyond grateful. And I'd love for you guys to actually comment your list down below. If you're new here, subscribe. You know this season's going to be fun. Let's get into the 10 teams from worst to best, what we should expect. Haas is a team that I think genuinely is trying to improve. Their testing programs seem to be accurate of what they were saying in the media. They're trying to test out their tire wear. And actually looking at race pace simulations, they weren't that bad. The tire wear seemed like it was getting better. But the car overall has a bit of understeer into it, at least going into corners like turn 11 and even turn 4. But as well, the car just kind of seems slow. It doesn't really have the downforce of other cars. And with the team's pretty much lackluster confidence, I'm going to say Haas is number 10 on our list. The Sauber team, the C44, has a pretty cool livery while looking at it on screen, but the actual car itself has seemed to have improved a little bit with the balance and some lockups and overall understeer in the car. It does still seem like it's a pretty slow car in comparison to the rest. Now, I don't think the Sauber car is going to continue to be very bad throughout the season. It seems like this new concept that they're going along with in comparison to their 22 and 23 version should upgrade the car even more, and they have better routes now with James Key. I do think the car will get better through the season, but as of right now, I have this team at number 9. The Williams car is a car that I expected to perform differently overall, but I think the team doesn't have a grasp fully yet of what the potential in this car is. They ended up actually keeping the pull rod suspension in the back, still have the push rod in the front, and overall the car performs a lot differently to that of the FW45. They say that they're still working on this car, they kept that suspension because of the budget cap, and overall the car does seem to be performing better in corners. We don't know how it's going to be on the straight line speed overall. Hopefully it performs a lot better, but they do say they fixed some problems from their 2023 season, so hopefully they can continue this trend of fixing the problems and going up, because I have a big belief in Williams, but I wasn't seeing enough to put them above the other teams. The Alpine car understeers like crazy. Now, this is a new baseline for them. The same issues that I think Williams is having, same with Sauber, it goes along with Alpine as well. They said their car is going to be on the backtrack towards the beginning of the season. They've kind of retracted that statement and said, don't count us out just yet. Recently talking with Matt Harmon, so maybe they're picking up on things. The car overall from day 1 to 3 did seem to get a bit better, but still pretty lackluster while watching it. The race pace simulations didn't really seem too crazy on it, and the car overall understeers a lot going into certain corners. So till they get that fixed out and the drivers are very confident driving this car with too many overcorrections, I think Alpine is going to be sitting here at 7th and actually going down a place from what they had in 2023. I do think the team is trying to improve overall in comparison to how it was these past years with that Renault/Alpine team. The team that everybody's talking about is this RB team, and that's the name we're going to stick with. The RB team seems to have given itself a better car overall in its baseline. The platform in the car seems better. The balance overall is much better. The car still seems to have a little bit of drag going into certain speeds. Its actual DRS efficiency was pretty good, but overall its top speed was down there amongst the others. But looking at the car going into corners on corner entry and actually being able to step on the throttle on the exits, it does seem like a much better car. The AlphaTauri really struggled going into corner entry. They seem to have fixed that, and the car is overall getting more and more upgrades. They even brought something from their shakedown video going into testing, kind of switching up that side pod. And supposedly they're trying to switch up the side pod even more to bring in more cooling into the cars. Maybe that's an issue with the car currently, but that should get better throughout the season, and I really do have a lot of belief in this RB team, especially pulling up those Red Bull parts. Now going into the top 5 teams, it's really a toss-up between 2 to 5. Arguably, each of them can be in each other's positions, but I'm going to do my best to try and put them in their respective rankings. Out of these top 5 teams, all of them have strengths, some of them have weaknesses, but overall they're very close together with the exception of one that I think is more ahead than the others. At number 5, it's Aston Martin. I think the Aston Martin car is the best balanced overall car on the grid. It doesn't seem to be having too much issues with its understeer, really not oversteering much into corners. It's very well balanced. It just kind of seems like it's lacking a little bit of grip in certain parts. Now, I hope to be wrong with this. Obviously, Aston Martin is the team that shocked us in 2023. They could do that to us again. The car does look very good, and as I said, it could jump anywhere between 5 to 2. It's very close for that Aston Martin car. McLaren is a team that I think has improved their car so much from 23. They look much better in this testing. They've stayed pretty quiet. And overall, they've actually said that before testing that they haven't actually reached every single goal they wanted to, and their in-season development will be important. Kind of yet again like 2023. The car does look pretty well balanced. It doesn't look to have that knife's edge like before. There are still some issues with understeer. I feel like that's a common problem with these bigger cars. Rarely oversteering with the exception of one that I will talk about. The car's rear end seems pretty stable going into certain corners, and overall a pretty well balanced car. I do not think it's better than the other teams that I'm going to name, but yet again, very close. It's tense making up these teams. At number 3, I have Mercedes. I think the Mercedes car is still hiding a lot of that potential, not necessarily sandbagging because I don't think it's the best car on the grid. I do think it's a bigger improvement. Lewis has talked about it, George has talked about it, and they've even referenced to last year being like, when you get into the car, you know if this is a race-winning car or not. And they haven't really said much about it being race-winning or not, but they have said the overall balance has been much better. Watching the car, it's pretty planted to the ground. Those sparks in the back flying is very fun to watch. And it's a lot lower to the ground with that baseline. There's much more to improve upon this W15. And I think through the season, they're going to improve continuously and hopefully bring us a title battle. At number 2, you've probably guessed it, Ferrari. I think the Ferrari car has made the biggest jump overall from last year's testing and Bahrain in general to what they've done this year. From practice 1 to practice 3, they've improved their car a lot. Practice 2 was a really good day for them. And the car looks planted. Yes, it does seem to have its oversteering moments, maybe because they went in the Charles Leclerc direction that they were talking about. But it's got a good baseline. It's got a strong front end, which was something that was lacking a lot in the 23 season. The drivers overall are silently confident, but watching the car is a thing of beauty. It might be losing a little bit of grip to the number 1 team, but overall that Ferrari car seems to have improved a lot. And this is kind of just the baseline for the car. It might look simplistic, but there is much more to be added to this Ferrari car to take it that next level. I really do think this is a team that could bring us that title battle in 2024. Number 1, you probably guessed it, it's Red Bull. And overall, my reasonings being is probably everybody's reasonings. They've came from 23. They had a lot of time to upgrade this car. They have a lot to look forward to with these new upgrades, and much more is being added onto the car, even adding parts to it throughout the testing sessions. Aston Martin is also another one of those teams that's added parts. And overall, this Red Bull car just seems to be very planted into the ground. Now, I do think Perez struggled with it a little bit more, meaning there's probably some oversteer in this car, which is preferable to Verstappen, making a more front-ended car. But going to turns 11 and 4, and just overall, even on the straight line speed, and from what we saw with this DRS efficiency, this car is not losing anything that it had in 2023. It's just gaining overall pace. I do not think the margin is very high. I think between them and Ferrari, overall it's probably like a 3 to 2 tenths pace. I hope I'm correct. I really hope that Red Bull doesn't come out and just destroys everybody, but this car is looking great. I do think this year will be a much closer battle. It does seem like literally teams from 1 to 5 are all in that battle to be able to try and contend for podiums and wins, Red Bull being the favorite, obviously. But we have a much closer grid on our hand and much more upgrades to come. Hopefully you guys agree with the list. If not, comment below anyways. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. You guys know that I reply below and talk about it. We're getting into the season. I cannot wait Thank you all so much for the support. Please leave a like, subscribe. It would mean the world. And peace.